Good evening, everyone. We're so excited that you were able to join us this evening. We know that these are very difficult times for parents, for families, for educators, and most importantly, for our students. And we're about to embark on the third webinar in a series that was done in collaboration with the New Jersey PTA. So I want to thank Kathy Lindenbaum and the PTA for partnering with NJPSA to make these webinars happen. And I also want to thank our presenters tonight and those who worked on the development team for tonight's content. You are in for a treat. We have some really great experts in the area of social media, and they're here to share their knowledge and expertise, and we truly appreciate the time and effort they put into making this happen. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Kathy. And by the way, let me also say thank you to all of the participants, educators, parents, anybody who's listening tonight for everything you are doing for the students of New Jersey. Kathy?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy Lindenbaum, the New Jersey PTA president. I want to welcome you to the New Jersey PSA and New Jersey PTA final webinar. What has been a great collaboration on a series of information for our education community. New Jersey PTA has advocated for children and families for 120 years. Because of the stay-at-home restrictions, social media has become a main source of communication. Our goal is to give ideas on how to help parents and children navigate through social media during this challenging time. A special thank you to Pat Wright and New Jersey PSA and the amazing panel of presenters. Now I would like to introduce David Nash, Director of Legal One, New Jersey PSA FEA.
Thank you so much, Kathy, and thank you, Pat. We are so incredibly excited to be working with the New Jersey PTA on this series. And you are going to see today just an amazing team that really has great expertise on issues of social media. So again, my name is David Nash. I am the director of the Legal One program. We do school law training for all stakeholders throughout the state of New Jersey on a wide array of school law issues. We've got a wonderful team with us today that you're going to be hearing from. Joe Venturi, who is the founder of the Cybersecurity Guard, and also is Chief Information Officer for the Monmouth Ocean Educational Services Commission, is with us. So we're thrilled to have Joe. We also have Justin Patchen, who is the co-director and co-founder of the Cyberbullying Research Center. And they do incredible research and give us information about what is happening across the country when it comes to issues of cyberbullying. We have Eric Scheninger, who's Associate Partner of the International Center for Leadership and Education, former New Jersey school administrator, who's going to share some of his expertise. He's a true leader in the field of social media. On our next slide, Barry Sade, who is principal of Roosevelt School, which is a grade 3-4 school in the Manville School District, and has done some great work at the elementary level using social media. We also have Brad Curry, who's Director of Planning, Research, and Evaluation, former middle school administrator as well in the Chester School District, who will talk about some great practices as far as using social media as well. Kevin Carroll, principal at Waldwick High School in the Waldwick School District, has done some amazing work at the high school level. On our development team, we also had Rosa Serra doing great work with New Jersey PTA, and Donna McInerney, who is the CEO for our foundation, the Foundation for Educational Administration. So we've got a great team that has put this presentation together, and we give you so much information here. This presentation is being recorded, so you will be receiving a link to the recording tomorrow. You will also receive a copy of the PowerPoint that has many links embedded within it for lots of great resources. So you will be receiving both of those tomorrow, along with a certificate that shows that you did participate in today's webinar. So just a quick overview of what we're going to walk through in this presentation today. I'll be walking through some issues regarding responsible use in the law, just a few key principles that we want to keep in mind. We'll talk about the role of social media during the pandemic, obviously playing a critical role in keeping us all connected. We'll talk about the role of parents and guardians in overseeing and guiding responsible use, and some of the dangers that can come with social media and how important it is to make sure we are monitoring our children in their use of social media. And then we're going to give you lots of positive examples, lots of great resources at whatever level you are at as a parent or guardian. We'll talk about great examples at the elementary level, middle school level, and high school level, and give you some wonderful resources to help you. And throughout the process, we'll also talk about protecting our children every step of the way while we are exploring all the wonderful positive ways that we can use social media. So I'll get us started by walking through a number of issues regarding social media in the law. Of course, you know, social media is everywhere. The vast majority of our kids are using social media regularly. I want to thank Eric Scheninger, who put together this slide for us. The average age in which kids sign up and start using social media is 12. Sometimes I suspect that's the age where they admit to signing up, may even be younger in many cases. 73% of our adults, of course, are regularly using social media as well. And we have so many positive ways that we can use social media. Of course, there are some negative ways as well that we do need to be aware of and concerned about. We'll go to the next slide. So school districts have certain rules, and you know, all parents and guardians should understand this. School districts have to make sure that we're not posting personally identifiable information about students online without prior parental consent. That includes student names, photos, addresses, email addresses, phone numbers, and locations and times that students might be on class trips. So a little bit hard to see here, but in the PowerPoint you'll receive, we do give you an embedded link to a consent form that was developed by the New Jersey Department of Education that would authorize schools, you know, where appropriate, to share some information on social media regarding students. And in many cases, it can be incredibly valuable to share information celebrating some of the great things that are happening with our students. So we've embedded a link to that consent form for you. Next slide. There are some dangers, of course, that we do have to be aware of with social media. And unfortunately, we do have our share of students across the nation who do engage in some practices that can be concerning, things like sexting, sending of explicit images. New Jersey has some very strong laws in place that make it clear that we cannot in any way be distributing any sorts of explicit images of minors. So we give you here specific citations to that statute, as well as a second statute that makes clear that in the vast majority of cases, we do recognize that if a student does make an inappropriate choice and engages in what we have come to call sexting or sending of explicit images, in the vast majority of cases, our prosecutors do recognize that we should not be criminally prosecuting the first time that happens. It is a very serious issue. It is something that we obviously have to take very seriously, but prosecutors have recognized that in the vast majority of these cases, we should look at diversionary programs, counseling, working with students and families to get them to understand why these were inappropriate choices to make. So we want you to be aware of those particular statutes. Next slide. There are other potential legal issues that could come into play. Sometimes you have students who might be involved in a dating relationship. Perhaps their relationship ends and one person from that relationship starts what we would call cyber stalking somebody else and trying to inappropriately follow that person online in order to track their movements and, you know, potentially try to control that individual. So cyber stalking can be a very serious issue. Sometimes it does lead to threatening behavior. So we do give you the information regarding cyber stalking that we should all be aware of. Another danger with social media that we always want to recognize is the danger of stolen identity. And this happens far too often. We will have students and adults do this too, where you end up sharing passwords with a trusted friend, assuming that information won't go anywhere else. And all of a sudden, your identity has been stolen. And that creates incredible challenges for everybody. And we certainly want folks to be aware of the dangers of stolen identity. And Joe Venturi, a little bit later on in our presentation, will talk about some of those issues in more detail. There are, of course, potential issues with cyberbullying. So the vast majority of our kids do recognize that we need to be supportive of each other. We do want to help each other. But we do have our share of cyberbullying issues in New Jersey and across the country that are happening. And Justin Patchen from the Cyberbullying Research Center will give us some critical information regarding cyberbullying. And unfortunately, we are seeing some cyberbullying linked to coronavirus as well. For example, Asian American students have been targeted because of the origins of the coronavirus. Keep in mind, New Jersey is a one-party consent state when it comes to recording conversations. So we have seen our share of conversations that were recorded without one party knowing. And then those conversations are posted on social media. So, you know, students should always understand that that potential exists in anything that we're saying, that we're putting out there, that somebody else might be capturing that information and posting that information online. Next slide. There are specific curriculum requirements that we also want to be aware of linked to social media. So New Jersey has put in place some educational standards to promote digital citizenship. We'll be hearing about those today. I've talked about issues regarding dangers of sexting, and New Jersey has now required that we address that issue in our curriculum. So that is something that students are going to be learning about in the curriculum. And there is also built into the curriculum trying to help students understand and respect each other's boundaries so that we are not crossing those lines and making students feel uncomfortable or unsafe. And certainly sometimes we do see social media being used in that way as well. Next slide. So let me just take a moment to introduce Justin Patchen. Justin, so great to have you with us. Justin is one of the premier experts in the country when it comes to issues of cyberbullying. Him and his partner and co-founder Samir Hinduja have done incredible work with the Cyberbullying Research Center. So Justin, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, David. I appreciate the opportunity. So my name is Justin Patchen. I do study how teens use and misuse technology. I'm a professor at the University of Wisconsin in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. That's my day job, but my work spends a lot of time looking at what young people are doing online. So I just want to touch base on a couple of issues that we've been seeing in the last few weeks and give you a couple of resources of things you can do to deal with these issues. So next slide, please. Just first of all, we've studied cyberbullying for about the last 18 years, and we survey students and parents and teachers and police officers. But our most recent survey was last year. We surveyed a national sample of about 5,000 middle and high school students and asked them about a lot of their behaviors online and off. But you can see that about a third of the students we surveyed said they had been the target of cyberbullying at some point in their life. And about 15 to 20% said that it had happened in the last 30 days. And you can see there also that a good proportion, anywhere from 5 to 15%, depending on how you ask the question, of middle and high schoolers admit to us that they've cyberbullied others, either in their lifetime or in the last 30 days. And if you're interested in kind of more of the research, we've got tons of data in these kinds of tables on our website. But I just wanted to set the tone that this is definitely something that is happening. Next slide, please. And we have not seen it disappear, as you can probably imagine, over the last few weeks. So we get examples on our website, and school administrators, parents, a lot of people email us. We probably get contacted at least once a day by somebody looking for help in dealing with the cyberbullying situation. So just a couple of examples of what we've seen. The example on the left, this was an example we received about 2 weeks ago from the mother of a 5th grader. The 5th grade students at this particular school had received Chromebooks to assist in the kind of learning at home, but yet they weren't really given much training on how to use those Chromebooks, much information on kind of misuse of those devices. So this particular student had sent an email using the school Chromebook and his school email account to a classmate, just kind of being mean. The one on the right is a message that we received from an administrator in Texas who is dealing with a profile that had been set up that was basically being mean to a number of the students in the school, just kind of trolling them. And this is pretty commonly what we see. Next slide. Some of you maybe noticed there was a pretty significant cyberbullying incident. This was a couple of weeks ago on TikTok. A couple of high school students made a very racist video and it was circulating, and it has gotten a lot of national attention, and the students involved were both suspended. And one of the students involved was kind of pleading for her privacy after posting this, saying, just kind of leave me alone and don't tell my college that I did this and I made a mistake. And that's one thing we need to remind our kids, right, is that our online activities have consequences. Thankfully, we have a lot of freedoms in the United States, but we're not necessarily free from the consequences of what we say and what we post. And so I think it's important to share these kinds of examples with our kids, of course, age-appropriate examples, so they can see kind of the fallout that could happen under these types of situations. Next, please. So I want to give you a couple of tools that you can use. The big thing is if your child is being cyberbullied, report it to the site or the app. And so all of the major apps have tools to report inappropriate content. We at the Cyberbullying Research Center have a list of these. If you go to cyberbullying.org/report, pretty much any environment you can think of, we've got the procedures for reporting cyberbullying, whether it's an email, phone number, a link to fill out a form. That's the first step. Definitely make a copy, so save all evidence of all cyberbullying. But then the goal is to get that taken down and as quickly as possible, and if possible, getting the aggressor removed from that platform. So there are lots of tools that you can use. Again, there's a link there in the slide for Instagram and Snapchat, two of the more popular platforms, but every mainstream app and site has a procedure for removing cyberbullying. Next. And I think we know that TikTok is pretty popular. It's gained a lot of momentum over the last couple of months, and I think especially in the last few weeks. So they're starting to feel a little bit of pressure to provide more tools to users and families to deal with issues that could occur on that platform. So one thing they've rolled out in the last couple of weeks that is going to go live here in a couple of days is this service they're calling family pairing, which will allow parents to have more controls over what their kids are seeing, who they're communicating with, how long they're using the app. They're going to restrict direct messages for kids under the age of 16. So TikTok is a relatively new app. It was Musically a couple of years ago. They kind of combined. So they're still kind of learning, I think, in terms of dealing with some of these problems. So I think this is a step in the right direction, and we'll kind of see how it plays out. And then next. Just a couple of resources, and there are many more on our site that deal with cyberbullying. If your child is being cyberbullied, and in some cases a much more challenging situation, if your child is the one who is being hurtful online, we have some top 10 tips and just some other strategies that you can use to encourage your kids to be responsible users of the internet. Next. And then the last thing I want to point out is I wrote a blog post a couple of weeks ago about screen time during this pandemic. I think if you're anything like me, I've got a 10-year-old and his screen time has certainly escalated over the last month or so. And don't panic, don't feel guilty. It's not necessarily a bad thing, right? I mean, there's no clear and compelling research that increased screen time in and of itself is bad. I think we need to use some common sense here and think about how that screen time is impacting other behaviors. So making sure your child gets enough sleep at night, making sure your child is active, sitting down for hours and hours during the day isn't healthy, whether they're staring at a screen or even reading a book or doing something else. So as long as you're balancing their activity with other things, and as long as their screen time isn't interrupting other family responsibilities, it's not that big of a problem. So don't freak out. You can check out more details on the blog there, but we're all in this together, parents. So if you need any other help, definitely check us out at the Cyberbullying Research Center.
All right, let's move to our next slide. Thank you so much, Justin. That's a great presentation. So many wonderful resources. And at this point, we're going to transition to Joe Ventry. Joe, again, is the founder of the Cybersecurity Guard and has some great information on some of the security steps that we should be taking to protect ourselves and our kids. So Joe, thank you so much. And if you're able to, you can share your picture as well, Joe. Or share your camera.
I'm having a technical difficulty with my camera tonight, so unfortunately, I can't do that. But thank you everyone for attending. I'm very excited to be on this panel with the rest of the team here. Just want to go over a couple of things to keep an eye on regarding safety, online safety, privacy issues. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Next slide, please. So one of the panelists shared this infographic, which is really a very powerful and very interesting infographic. So we'll just take it one at a time. The first thing regarding a cyber safety's checklist is you want to make sure that you're backing up important files that you have on your computer or even on your phone, so that in the event of a catastrophic, what we call catastrophic, where a device fails, you have a backup of the important, even pictures that you might want to save. So you want to have a backup that you can rely on. Strengthening your home network, that really just boils down to making sure that your Wi-Fi, every vendor has a website that you can check for updates, and they usually release updates when they might find a security issue with their setup. So you download the update and it updates your Wi-Fi setup. The other thing you want to take into consideration too is the name of your network. You don't want to identify your network or your house with your name. So just pick something out of the ordinary so that no one can match up your broadcasting SSID or your Wi-Fi name with your home. In addition to that, the one thing that most people don't like to do is use strong passwords. It always amazes me when if you do a Google search for most popular or most common passwords, they still are the word password or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's not going to protect you at all. So you want to consider using something a little more difficult. Try not to use things that are related to you or associated with you that can be guessed. Again, keep your software updated. This is huge if you're a Windows user. They're always coming out with updates. Vulnerabilities are found in Windows software and also in apps. They also release updates for apps for a variety of reasons, and sometimes they have to do with security. Your social media profile. It's okay to share information on your social media profiles. You just want to make sure that your profiles are set to private, or that you're only sharing the information with specific people that you actually know. I always joke around with my brother because he has something close to 700 friends on Facebook, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't know 700 people, but he insists on having that number of people associated with him, which is fine. I just wonder who he's sharing his information with. I get a little concerned with that. Checking privacy and security settings. Another task that's not fun to do, but it is really worthwhile looking at what options you have and what options you can set on different platforms to protect either yourself or your child's identity, or your child, just for safety from your child being contacted by adults or people perhaps you don't want them interacting with. And the last and not least, avoid opening and delete suspicious emails or attachments. Since COVID has started, the dark web has seen an increased number of stolen credentials for medical sites. And what's happened is recently, within the last couple of weeks, there's been an increase in the number of websites that have been registered with the name COVID or coronavirus. So emails are being sent to people with the word COVID or coronavirus in the email address, and people are thinking they're legitimate. They're clicking on the links and then providing usernames, passwords, sometimes credit cards, just because they feel that this is information that they need to have. So if you didn't ask for the information, if you didn't ask for the email, or it looks anything suspicious at all, when in doubt, delete it. Next slide, please. Stolen identity. So why are children such big targets for identity thieves? The biggest reason is we as parents and guardians tend not to monitor our child's social security number. So what happens is the hackers know that they will have quite a while to use the social security number of a child before anybody raises any red flags. So when the child turns 16 or 17 and starts applying for colleges and FAFSA and things like that, that's when they find out that their collections agencies and the credit score is in the toilet, because the social security number has been used for quite some time, and it's been racking up bills for many years. The other issue is that children are easily to manipulate when they're online. Predators know that, and they prey on that. They will go into check social media profiles and just get a feel for where the child might be at that point in time in terms of where their thinking is. Maybe their parents are going through a divorce, or there's something going on. They're looking for an opening. Once they have that opening, that's when they start exploiting the children. And then little by little, they get more and more information out of them. And then before you know it, the child has pretty much had their identity stolen. Next slide, please. So what can we do as parents? The first and foremost thing I would recommend is make sure you understand the information policy of any organization, including the school, that you have to provide your child's social security number to. It's okay to ask questions like, why do you need this? What are you going to do with it? Where is it going to be stored? Because you're just looking out for your child's best interest. And no one should ever, the response you should never get is, don't worry about it, it's safe. Have them prove to you in some way, shape, or form with their answer that you can rest assured that the information is not being shared. Freeze your child's credit. That's another option where, in case the social security number does get out, no damage can really be done to your child's credit. And you can also sign up for an identity monitoring service. And I provided a link here to some of the more popular and effective credit monitoring. And educate your child on the importance of their social security number. Explain to them how critical it is to keep it private and how it can affect their credit and what that means. Maybe when they're later in life, when they want to buy a car, maybe they won't be able to because their credit has been damaged because their social security number leaked out. Next slide, please. Another issue that we've seen online is the sharing of inappropriate images. The first thing to remember about that is images are never really private. Nothing is ever really private online. Even the apps that claim to be secure and you can post a message or an image and it'll disappear. There are always ways around things like that. And with one click of a mouse or one push of a screen, that one particular action can send a photo out to the internet and you can never get it back, and it can be copied and replicated, and tracking it down and having it removed can be very, very difficult. The other issue with sharing inappropriate images is that the child puts themselves at risk of humiliation and ridicule, which is what we see in cyberbullying, as Justin was talking about earlier. The potential legal consequences, Dave talked about this, for sending explicit images. And last but not least, online behavior can come back to haunt a student when applying to colleges for a job. Places of business will do a search. They will look up people's names and see what their online behavior has been like. And plenty of people have not received job offers because of their profile may be inappropriate or pictures are inappropriate. Next slide, please. The last thing I wanted to talk about was hiding in plain sight. And what do I mean by that? Well, there's a few things. For example, beware of the Finsta account. And what that is usually is it's an Instagram account that you don't know about. So your child may have an Instagram account that you're aware of, and it may have only a set number of followers and has nice pictures and nice content. But then there's the Finsta, which means fake Instagram. And that's the one where they don't want you to see. So it's important to really get a handle on, have conversations with your children, explain to them the dangers of having these types of accounts. You might even see this lingo in some of their chats or text messages. Some kids will create parent-friendly profiles on purpose, so that if you did say, I want to see your Facebook page or your TikTok account or what have you, they can pull something up quickly and make it look like this is the one they always use. And when you look at it, it seems harmless and they go about their day. And the other thing that is very popular that anyone can find on the App Store or Google Play are apps that will basically, when you install them on the phone, will replace apps like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, replace their icons with icons like dictionary and calculator. So you can't really tell unless you push on the icon to see what the app is that's running. It's a way for them to hide what they're doing. So again, once in a while, pick up the phone, click on some of those icons, take a look at what's on there. I'm in no way saying or advocating for invading anyone's privacy, but because of the exposure or the potential for danger with some of these apps, I would recommend that you just confirm what is running on your child's phone. And with that, I'd like to turn it back to Dave.
Great. Thank you so much, Joe. It's really important for parents to have this information and have these tools. And we do give you links at the end of the PowerPoint as well to all these great resources. So let's move on to our next slide. I wanted to turn at this point to Eric Scheninger. Again, as we move into this part, we wanted to first give you some information about how to protect your child and understand some of those concerns. Of course, we also want to talk about some of the incredible things we can do with social media. So with that, let me turn it over to Eric.
All right, thanks, David. Good evening, everyone. And coming to you from Southeast Texas, outside Houston, but I am born and raised in New Jersey. I'm from Belvedere, New Jersey. My mom was a teacher in Flemington. My father was a principal in Hackettstown, and my grandmother was a teacher in Ocean City. I was a teacher at Watchung Hills Regional High School in Somerset County, and then I became an administrator in New Milford High School in Bergen County. And while at New Milford, starting in 2009, we really did some amazing things. And when I say we, my teachers, my other administrators, my parents, we really embraced social media at an early stage. Next slide, please. So as we think about, next slide. As we think about, oops, no, go back one. As we think about our social world, this image I use in many of my keynotes all over the country and all over the world because it really sets the tone for the world that we live in. When we think about technology, we think about social media, anything, any tool where you can communicate, collaborate, create is social media. FaceTime is a social media tool. Twitter, YouTube, Even email can be considered a social media tool because of what's happening in terms of the communication, the collaboration, the creativity. And when we think about, just like YouTube, YouTube is the world's second largest search engine behind Google. So next slide, please. So as we think about the world that we live in, our kids, they have never grown up in a world without social media. They don't remember the dark days of us fumbling around with a rotary phone or the Commodore 64. When we first got email, laptops, Palm Pilots, they don't know about MySpace, Friendster, Napster, archaic social media tools. They're growing up in a world of TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram. I mean, those are the tools that kids use the most. But when you really think about the aspects, usually we get focused on just what the tool does. And sometimes it has a negative context or a positive. But when we think about all the amazing things, social media is like a Swiss Army knife. It could be blogs. It could be microblogs like Twitter, posting, creating pictures on like Instagram, using video, podcasts, bookmarkings, Pinterest. Everyone loves Pinterest. Well, I don't know about everyone. I love Pinterest. Pinterest is a great way to bookmark images, building a community, forums, chats, networks for learning. But when we think about our kids, social media in this pandemic world is their lifeline because we are social creatures. And as they're growing up, going through that connection to their peers, whether it be social, emotional, or more directed on learning, is critically important. Next slide, please. So as we think about the role of social media during this pandemic, and we have to be cognizant of the fact that we need our kids safe. We have to be aware of the laws, but sometimes we get held back on those on those yeah buts, and that's why we don't embrace social media, or we feel concerned when our kids are using it. But when we really focus on the what ifs, the what if is about opportunity. The what if is about potential. The what if is about inspiration. When we think about the role of social media now, it's about getting real-time information, not just you as parents, but our kids. Kids want to know what's going on. They want to know what's going on in the sports world, the entertainment world, the music world. We think about inspiration. There are so many inspiring memes and GIFs, and they can go down the other road as well. But we could find inspiring stories, and we could really connect that in terms of real world context and information to what our kids are learning today. Kids can get resources and ideas through social media. I saw this whole curriculum, pre-K through 12, developed using Khan Academy resources that basically kids can go and pick up right where they left off in the curriculum. If it wasn't for social media, ladies and gentlemen, I would never have known that existed. We could talk about support. As parents, we can get support dealing with a whole array of challenges. But guess what? So can kids. Kids can get support from teachers, from the business world, from community members, and even from others that they might just lurk and look at their messaging. And it really is about connection. When we think about what the impetus, what the glue that holds everything together when it comes to social media, it's about relationships. And without trust, there's no relationship. If there's no relationship, no real learning occurs. And it's about kids connected to the world around them. Next slide, please. And as we think about some ideas for you, this is just my last slide because you know what? I love social media. I love how the impact that it can have on learning for our kids. I love how, you're going to see in a minute some amazing school examples across the state of New Jersey. But what can you do in order to guide responsible use? You know what? Learn with your kids. Don't reinvent the wheel. They can teach you how to use tools like Instagram, not really Facebook. They don't really use it. Maybe if you had older kids. TikTok. My kids actually have taught me how to do elaborate Instagram stories and build in polls and interactives. A thing that's taking off by storm is creating family TikTok videos. Don't be a fixed mindset person. Don't be yeah, but think about what if. Think about having fun, making yourself vulnerable, and making those videos with your kids, collaborating on creating Instagram stories. You could do group FaceTime calls with family, friends. You could co-create YouTube videos. Create a YouTube channel with your kids. You know, they know how to do this stuff. You can use live video such as Zoom, Google Hangouts, that's what GHO is, and Blue Jeans. You can actually go to an app called House Party and in an environment play online games together. You can do fitness tracking and competitions together using social media tools such as Fitbit, even just looking and comparing and contrasting the data on your iPhone or your Android. Know what your gaming systems can do and their role, everybody. You know, when we think about gaming systems, we just watch TV on our Xbox. You know, we pull up YouTube channels, we surf the internet. You know, the gaming systems are very, very integral to our kids right now. So get involved, play the games with them. Make sure in tandem with the gaming systems, you protect their identity. And again, going back to what Justin and Joe shared before, you know, our kids, they're playing Minecraft, they're playing Fortnite, they're playing Roblox. There is a lot of tools that can open up the doorway to some potential dangers. Talk to your kids. Maybe institute time limits. I'm not here to tell you how to parent everybody, but I put time limits on my 9th grader and my 7th grader here in our home. And for a really bona fide resource, you can Google Common Sense Education. There's a whole digital citizenship curriculum on there that is free. Tons of tips, tons of ideas for you. Thank you, everyone, for what you are doing at home to support your kids. And now I'm going to turn it over to our next presenter.
All right. Thank you so much, Eric. That was incredible. Let's move to our next slide, and let's turn it over to Barry Sade.
Thanks, David, and thanks Eric, and all our presenters who presented before I did. It's just a pleasure to be here talking with all of you. So we're going to kind of put into action some of the things that our other presenters talked about, and talked about how on a elementary level, how these practices play themselves out, because it's really our job in the elementary level to do a lot of the educating that Eric was talking about. So if we go to that next slide. All right, so one of the things that we talked about, and it's been a common theme through these past slides, is about the narrative, right? Trying to control the narrative. And when we talk about how narratives have been formed traditionally throughout history, it's really been from sitting around a campfire to watching a soccer game to just arrival and dismissal. So for us, in this age of social media, especially now where we're so socially distant from one another, it's so important that we communicate, educate, and elevate, so we really make sure that all our stakeholders understand the things that are happening. Because if we don't do that, then that's on us if other people have other ideas about way things happen. So if we could go one more slide. All right, so I kind of look at this as we're at the intersection of tradition, where we talk about people coming together and having conversations, really thinking about the way things are occurring, and innovation, where it's truly there's so many different apps and ways to communicate, platforms where you don't even have to leave your home, which we're really aware of, especially now during these times. And again, it's really on us to make sure that even though we close our doors in this age of safety and security in schools and in districts, it's really incumbent upon us to invite our families in through another medium, so they really understand the things that are happening in school and why we do the things we do, especially on that elementary level. So if we could go one more slide. All right, so at Roosevelt, we really take it upon ourselves to educate our students and thereby educating our families in terms of what happens once we close that door. So we have arrival at 7:50 in the morning. Our students come to the multi-purpose room and we have a morning meeting together. But there's a 10-minute block in the morning where we really kind of give our kids an opportunity to socialize in multiple different ways. And one of our teachers, Mrs. Sweeney, who's on Twitter at 14K Sweeney, started playing music one day. And from our students starting to do the Cotton Eye Joe or the YMCA or the Orange Julius, and don't ask me to show you that. You don't want that to happen on film. Our students started to dance, and more students would go in the back till there were 200 kids doing the Orange Julius in the back. So what we started to do to let families in on the fact that kids were coming in and they were excited, they weren't anxious about going to school, is we utilized Periscope, and we would then put that out there so families could see that their kids were not only okay, but they were dancing and socializing. And then as we got in towards the school year and we're getting towards March, which feels like forever ago, and the pandemic became something that was real because it started to hit close to home. For us, when we knew that our kids might be away from us and might be distant, we made sure that during one of our morning meetings, we had our nurse up there and some of our students and our teachers really sharing about the importance of hygiene, because whether students were going to be with us or they were going to be apart, we wanted to have an impact on their lives. And these are things that are important, especially when they can't be with us and we can't reinforce these things. So if we could go one more slide. All right. So one of our big initiatives as a school and as a district is social emotional learning. As we know from all the research, it's the foundation for everything that we're going to do on top of that. And when we come back to school, and I know we're all looking forward to those days because it's hard to be so isolated, is when we come back to school, our kids are going to have been off for a long period of time, and they're really going to need a lot of TLC. They're going to need a lot of interventions in the classroom so our kids understand that we love them, we care about them, they're safe, they're supported before we can get them engaged. So you take a look at Jessica Conover on the left. She's at Twitter at Miss_Conover. We do a lot of SEL stuff in the classroom to the point that we have calm down corners in one portion of the room. So our tier 1 interventions, before we involve guidance, before we involve me, is our teachers are trained to do a lot of regulatory work with our students so they can understand when a student's not quite coming in at a place when they're right and they're feeling good. Even after that morning meeting, even after that time to dance, they need a little more time to decompress. They know they can go to that calm down corner. And then it's so important that when our families drop off and they can't come in, but they're worried about how their child's going to be that day, we make sure we communicate out to them that we have all these resources and training that we're a part of so their children are going to be okay. And then we look at the right side where Megan Datola at Mrs. Datola on Twitter, she has something where when kids come in, there's a little chalkboard on the side, and every child has a heart. I have a heart too. And we can come in and put down kind of where we're feeling, and that's a check-in. So we know if kids are coming down on that lower end of the scale where it's red or it's green, they're not quite in the spot where they're ready to go that day, then we know, and they know that we know that they need a little check-in and just to say, hey, how are you? And now that we move to a virtual space, even that check-in is in a virtual space to the point that I know if I put my heart in a green or a red, I know Mrs. Datola might send me a text message or a phone call or a Google Hangout and just be like, how are you? What's going on? I'm here to help you. So those are just 2 ways that we make sure our families are included as we move into different elements of education. So if we can go one more slide. All right. So after we get to that foundational piece and our families know that SEL is so important, they also need to understand that they're not 2 separate things. SEL is the gateway to making sure that good learning occurs every day and more often. So if we look at Mr. Radke on the left, and it's at Guy Radke, he integrates music and he integrates writing on the computer to the point that children in a 3rd grade level have the academic stamina to write for 10 minutes straight on opinion writings. And then we look at the right side with Mr. Radke. Even though the education system has changed now and we're in a distance learning atmosphere, he posts every day the morning message so not only his children can see it, but their families can see it. And now he's moved from a we're all together and we're going to do a writing together to digital escape rooms, which you can do anywhere. So if we can go one more slide. All right. Now, it is so important that we're showing all the different ways that we're integrating technology and leveraging social media to support students and families, but in addition, how are we highlighting that work that when they extend that learning? Because we know from Bloom's as teachers that the highest level of learning is when you can teach it to someone else. And we look at Ms. Conover's class on the left, where they have utilized their Chromebooks and quizzes to create review quizzes that they then quiz and teach one another, so they're prepared to do well on assessments moving forward. On the right, one of our students took it upon herself to do a mindful moment. Now, during the course of the school year at Roosevelt, we have a lot of students who may come in not quite ready to learn. I mean, heck, there are days when I come in where maybe my own children are kind of giving me a run for my money. And maybe I haven't taken out the garbage that night and I'm hearing about it in the morning. So I need a moment to kind of get myself together, and so do our students, so do our staff. We're all human beings. So in the morning, during our morning meeting, and then again at one point during the day, we do something called a mindful moment, and we just stop everything and we take deep breaths together, and either a teacher, myself, or a student leads us in that protocol. Now, one of our students in Mrs. Natola's class took it upon herself that even though we can't be together during a pandemic, she created her own mindful moment, her own mindful minute, and then we posted it internally on our Google Classrooms so all students can have that moment to just kind of check in, calm down, self-regulate, because we can't have a calm down corner, but we can have a mindful moment. And then we also reached out to the parent and we said, would you mind if we took a little piece of it and just shared it out? Because we were proud of her and the child's parents were proud of her, and they said, sure. So we put that out there for everybody. So we go another slide. All right. The one thing I think I'm most proud of being principal at Roosevelt, and I'm blessed every single day, is that our staff celebrates one another more than they celebrate themselves, right? That's more important to them. So we look at the left from Mrs. Da Silva, who's one of our Spanish teachers. She's at Jacinta da Silva 12, and she has her Google Hangout, her Google Classroom open from 9 to 2. And students can just kind of come in during the course of the day and have one-to-one lessons with her. She can run small groups. And we look at our PTA president, who actually tweeted this out, and that's at Erickson_Ricky. Ricky Erickson's child, Chase, came in and wanted to have a one-to-one conversation with Ms. Da Silva. And because that was open, Ms. Da Silva was able to kind of connect with Chase a little bit. And then we look on the right and we see Mrs. Mathewson at AJ Mathewson. Her bigger goal beyond the fact that she wants to celebrate her students is she wants to celebrate her partner teachers. So even though we have a rock star teacher, Ms. Laura Landau, who has no social media profile whatsoever, and that's fine. That's totally cool. We're going to keep her forever because she's fantastic. Ms. Mathewson made it a point to shout out her colleague, which for me is the greatest showing of building a strong culture. So if we could go one more slide. It is so important additionally that with all these different ways that we're communicating with students and we're communicating our message out and we're communicating with each other, that we cannot forget the fact that we need to tie up all those different loose ends and making sure all that information is readily available. So every single thing we're doing, we may tweet it out, we may put it out on Facebook, but we're also going to document it, because not every family is going to look on Twitter. They're not going to look at Facebook. Sometimes they just need a piece of paper, or they want one site where they can get everything. And we look at Miss Mathewson on ClassTag. One of the things we've done now in Manville to make things a little bit easier for our students and managing, as well as our families, is that we went into a flipped learning module. So on Monday, Miss Mathewson and her colleague teachers, they post everything for the week on Monday and what is due by Friday. And then that frees them up for the rest of the week to run small groups, independent circles, as well as to just connect in with families. And the expectations are really clear. It's in one spot. Here it is on Monday, due by Friday. I'm going to help you all week to get there. And then on the right, we have Miss Cardoso at Miss_Cardoso. She understands, and we understand, that as we've gone through this unprecedented time, that learning needs to change. And when you go all the way back from you go to day 1 to past day 100, and then you're day 1 all over again. And now you're with your children all day long, and you see things through a different light. You're going to get frustrated. As someone who's been in education for 20 years and has a second grader and has a third grader, I've had levels of frustration that bring me back to first year teaching, and definitely first day parenting. So Ms. Cardoso understood that. And after her first day, she made it a point to send an email and a letter to families, letting them know, like, hey, here's my 5 big tips that I learned today, being almost like a first year teacher all over again. These are the things I learned. Think about whether that was something that's helpful to you, and let's connect on this, because we're going to hang in there together. We're going to get through this together. Next slide, please. And the last piece is, when we talk about getting through this together, is we're all human beings. And I mentioned I'm a parent as well. We have a great staff and we have great supports, but I know this because I'm around them every day. Families aren't expected to know these things because they don't spend day in, day out with all of us. They have their one data point, their experience, and from that, they're going to draw a lot of their own understandings. It's important for us to drive home the information that not only are we professionals, but we're people too. And we're here to have fun. We're here to enjoy one another, but we're also here to learn from one another. And if we can't do those things and we're not communicating those things, we're not doing those things correctly. So thank you for that opportunity to present. Thank you, because I learned a lot from everybody else that I heard from, and now I'm passing it back over for the next rockstar presenter.
Thank you so much, Barry. That was an incredible presentation, and everyone can see your passion and energy. So let's move to our next slide, and we'll turn it over to Brad.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Barry, and everybody who contributed to this presentation. I want to thank NJPSA, FEA, and NJPTA for their support. This is a very timely and important presentation webinar that we're making here tonight. And as a parent, something that I've learned a great deal from all the experts here on this panel. My name is Brad Curry. I am the Director of Planning, Research, and Evaluation for the Chester School District in Chester, New Jersey. An amazing district, amazing place. And over the next few minutes, I want to share some stories related to our great school district. Next slide, please. So I am a parent of a 8th grader and 3rd grader, and I'm seeing firsthand here at home during the remote learning era, the struggles and the triumphs that my own kids are going through as it relates to remote learning, and beyond that, as it relates to establishing those connections that they have with their peers, with their friends, now virtually rather than in the physical world in school. And I've been amazed at how they have been able to stay the course and really focus on their studies, but then also, have a good time with their friends, whether it's through FaceTime, social media, or in my son's case, PlayStation, and engaging with his friends in playful banter over a PlayStation game. And so I see that every day as a parent, and I understand the questions and the struggles that you have as parents. And hopefully some of your questions have been answered already, and I'm hopeful that over the next few minutes I can answer some of your questions as it relates to social media technology during this remote learning era. Next slide, please. So I really want to focus on middle school over the next few minutes here. And the foundation of middle school is something that's called This We Believe. It comes from AMLE, the National Middle School Association here in the United States. And it has, it's based on 16 characteristics. I'm not going to go through all the characteristics. I just want to focus on a few as it relates to what we're doing here today. And that, as you see there at the bottom, the school actively involves families in the education of their children. You've heard great stories already. I'm going to share some stories about how schools in the digital world can involve families in the education of their students. And then you see another characteristic here under culture and community, where the school environment is inviting, safe, inclusive, and supportive of all. And I want to think about that as we navigate this digital world that we're living in right now from our homes, and what that looks like, and how schools can still be inviting, can still be safe, can still be inclusive and supportive of all. Not only in this remote learning environment that we're all a part of right now, but also as it relates to social media and technology. Next slide, please. ISTE, the National Organization for Technology Integration here in the United States, has several standards, and standard 2 focuses on students and their responsibilities as it relates to social media and what they can do with social media for the better good, to make our world a better place, to enhance their roles as citizens here in this great country that we live in. And in particular, standards or the substandards 2A and 2B. You look at 2A, where students cultivate and manage their digital identity and reputation and are aware of the permanence of their actions. I think it's really important to have these conversations with your child, with your children at home, about the permanence of the digital world, of social media. I think it's a team effort, not only in school, but at home. We have these conversations, we talk with our children about what it means to be a responsible school citizen in the virtual world. I think the better off we will be. And you look at 2B there, students engage in positive, safe, legal, and ethical behavior when using technology, including social interactions, online, or when using network devices. This is really important, that they understand what this means. They understand what it looks like, and what's going to happen in the event that they don't act appropriately on social media. I've had these conversations with my 3rd grade daughter and my 8th grade son on a number of occasions, whether it's using YouTube possibly the wrong way, or having an inappropriate chat on PlayStation. We need to be aware of the apps and the technologies that our children are using here at home and outside of the home. And when something comes up, it's a learning opportunity. It's not always about, all right, now you're in trouble. No, it's to have the conversation. Let's talk about it, and let's learn from it, and let's make sure it doesn't happen again. Because words do hurt, actions do hurt, whether they're in the physical world or virtual world. So check out the ISTE standards for students. There are, I think, 7 or 8 standards, and this particular standard, standard 2, focuses on social media and being connected as a student. Next slide, please. And I want to really start here, this next part of my presentation here, looking at the idea that it's okay to be a connected student. It really is. Being connected on social media provides opportunities for adults and for students. It really does. I mean, if you think about the presenters here on this panel, if it weren't for social media, in many of our cases, we would not be here today speaking to you about the power of social media. And it really does provide opportunities. I've seen time and again over the last 6 weeks, tremendous stories of students, high school students, middle school students, all kinds of people helping each other out through social media, raising awareness, doing great things, and trying to help people get through this pandemic. And it really is. It's okay to be a connected student. There's a way to do it, and there's a way not to do it. Next slide, please. Jennifer Casatad created this tremendous sketch note. It's titled "The Connected Student," and it really brings to light, the tenets of what it means to be a connected student. You start here from the left and looking at connected students. Many times they are more engaged in school, and we're going to talk about that for a few minutes here. About how schools, in conjunction with students, can leverage the power of social media to really tell the great stories that are going on each and every day. Connected students know that there are many people who can help them solve a problem, and in many different ways, whether they're working on a project or trying to raise awareness. Social media, whether it's through Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, what have you, students have people at their fingertips. Through a few clicks of the mouse or through a few taps of the screen, they are able to reach people in ways once thought unimaginable. And you can see here the many tenets that Jennifer Casatad brings to you about the connected student. And one of the most important tenets here that she highlights is to utilize social media to create positive digital footprints. And that's what I always try to hit home with students in the Chester School District, with my own children here at my house, the positive digital footprints and leaving those, because very quickly those positive digital footprints can turn into negative digital footprints with the wrong message, inappropriate post or text message. It can go wrong very fast. Next slide, please. Very important for adults, for schools, for districts, for classrooms, organizations, higher ed institutions, to model the appropriate use of social media. People are paying attention, particularly our students, our kids. They see what's going on, whether you're a school or whether you're a parent, and how you use social media to bring about change, to tell stories in a positive fashion. Next slide, please. In the Chester School District, we try to model this every day through the We Are Chester NJ hashtag. And you can connect with us on Twitter, on Instagram, or on Facebook. And you can learn great things about what's going on with our students and staff on a daily basis. We, teachers, administrators, parents, community members, students, all participate in this appropriate use of social media through hashtags and social media handles. And we see this time and again. We saw Barry talk about it. We're going to see Kevin talk about it here in a moment. Social media really does wonders for telling your story and informing stakeholders of what's going on. And we're seeing that right now with this pandemic, during the remote learning era. Schools, students, parents, families sharing great things that are going on in their homes, trying to remain positive. And we can do this, and we need to remain positive, not only for our own sanity, but for the sanity of our children and of our students. Next slide, please. Next week, we are doing a CSD Spirit Week, Chester School District Spirit Week. I got this idea from my friend, Scott Rocco, who did this in Hamilton a few weeks ago. And we're going to try to bring people together, again, modeling the appropriate use of social media. Students, parents, teachers, administration, any and all school stakeholders, district stakeholders will participate in this via Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. And we're just going to try to have a fun time with it. Depending on the day, we are going to show our school spirit. We're going to give thanks to people who deserve thanks, our frontline heroes. It's really going to bring the community together in Chester virtually, and that's what we have now. That's all we can do, and we really are looking forward to this. And it's something you can do. Encourage your school or district to do this as well, to really bring together the school and district community. Next slide, please. And it's important to meet your child in the middle. As we talk about middle school students, on the right-hand side there, I share some tips or some apps and websites, one of which I'm going to talk about in a moment. But on the left here, I want to offer some tips and strategies. Again, maintain balance. Very important to do that. We got to understand that bedrooms have become classrooms in many cases, and what that looks like. We typically in the past would say, all right, maybe you shouldn't bring your devices into your bedroom. Well, now there aren't in the bedroom because everybody's working from home and learning from home. So we need to understand that and work with it. Not all families are alike. What you see going on or posted on social media may not be going on in other homes and things of that nature. Understand that children are craving interactions. And so you need, as Justin spoke to earlier, we need to be able to not worry about screen time as much as we usually do, because students need to talk to each other, whether it's on FaceTime or social media. Get involved in virtual events, school events. Ensure your child is completing work, and make sure in many instances that you're following your child back. Understand, know what platforms they're on, and follow them back, and let them know that you're there with them and that you see what they're posting, but at the same time supporting them, being their champion as they try to promote positive change with social media. Next slide, please. As I finish up here, I want to talk about one app in particular that I think is tremendous, that will help your child, particularly in the middle school level, really think about their actions on social media. It's called the Rethink app. Trisha Abu created this. She was a high school student when she created it, and she created her own organization, Rethink, her own business, Rethink. And one of the first things she did was create this app, the Rethink app. You can download it onto your iOS or Google device. And what it does, it creates another keyboard on your phone. And you can enable this keyboard, and as you're texting or as you are posting on social media, and you are the child, a student, and right before you hit send or okay, and there's something inappropriate, this app will notice it and it'll bring up an alert and make you think as a student, as a child, do I really want to post this? And so it doesn't absolutely prevent you from posting anything inappropriate, but it does give you a way to kind of think about what it is you're posting. So check it out. It's a great app, the Rethink app. Next slide, please. And finally, Connect Safely is just like Justin's organization, his university there. Connect Safely is a great resource. If you go to connectsafely.org, they have quick guides on all the different social media apps out there. So check it out, Connect Safely. It's a great resource. And again, I want to thank NJPSA, FEA, and NJPTA for hosting this webinar. I'm going to turn it back over to Dave.
Thanks so much, Brad. Just incredible ideas and resources. So with that, let's move to our next slide. And last but certainly not least, incredible high school principal, Kevin Carroll from Waldwick High School. Thanks so much, Kevin.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Kevin Carroll, principal at Waldwick High School, home of Warrior Nation. To the 114 attendees out there, stay with us. I know we might have went over a little bit, but the information that the previous presenters have shared was amazing things. I've learned so much from them tonight, as well as over the years, and that's all because of the connections that we all have made through social media. I hope all of you are safe. I hope all of you have been able, and your families, to get through this coronavirus pandemic without any losses. And I'm thinking about all of you, and all the people in education are as well. Next slide, please. So I just want to go over a few of the apps that high school students are using. TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, YouTube, Visco. These are all apps that majority of the high school students are involved in while they're home during this virtual learning environment. All of them have positive attributes. All of them could have negative pieces of them as well. So I just ask you to monitor them, know what they're about. As I go through some of my slides, I'll talk about a little of them in more detail of how you can do that. But these are the ones, they're really not on Twitter that much. They're really not on Facebook. These are where the kids are living. As soon as we start to live in some of these apps, they'll move on to something new. And there always will be something new coming. And we as adults have to stay up to date and informed of what's going on with them. Next slide, please. As a high school parent, I do have to say to you, please don't relax. Sometimes we think the students get to high school and we're done with our responsibilities, we've done our job. It's more important than ever that you stay involved, you stay connected, you reach out to teachers, you follow what they're doing online, you know who their friends are, you know who they're talking to. It's extremely important that that involvement stays, because they're going through some time in their life that there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of questions. And they may not want you or there at that moment or to support them, but inside they do. They need that. So please don't forget that. Learn what apps they're using. Learn how to monitor what they're doing. Stay connected, but don't make it awkward either. You don't want to be their friend. You still need to be their adult, but you start to have a different relationship with your child as they become older in high school. Next slide. For me, social media in the educational world revolves around these four key components. Building relationships is, to me, at the heart of everything. I know the previous presenters have all mentioned that, but if you show who you are as an educator on social media, really showing students who you are from your heart. And if you're sharing honestly with them and you show them that you care, that really comes across a long way. It brings a school community together, uniting around a hashtag, uniting around positive things that go on in your school and your community, really makes an impact. As educators, we always want to model the good things that can happen on social media. We want to use good digital citizenship and show them that it's not all about negatives or cyberbullying or HIV issues. It's about sending a message, connecting with people, making them know the positive things within yourself as well as a school community. We talk to our athletes a lot about how their social media presence is perceived, how colleges, how recruits are looking at that. And that's extremely important for them to be aware of. And then just being a storyteller. That's been repeatedly mentioned tonight, but telling your story, being the person who gets the positive information out goes a long way. Next slide. These are for our school, Warrior Nation and Own It WHS. These are hashtags that we use that bring our community together. Whether it's a state championship game, whether it's a death of a person in our community, whether it's celebrating student success for going to college. Warrior Nation comes together, and that only was created because of social media and the constant posts and information that was put out there. And Own It. Own It represents for our students and staff that to give their full effort in everything they do, whether they're in the classroom, whether they're on the basketball court, whether they're in the marching band, whether they're out in the public. Own what they're doing and really embrace that. And that has become a motto for us at our school. Next slide. During this pandemic, we have used social media to connect with our school community. Like Brad, we have had a Spirit Week already where our students share pictures, staff. Getting the whole school community involved is really key. We have done live TV shows. We normally had TV shows that were taped that were shown during the school day and put on our YouTube channel. But now we've decided to go live. Our students have created this, have really spearheaded it. Our advisor, Mr. Meltzer, works with the students. But for the most part, it's a student-run production, and our parents at 7 o'clock at night are watching these shows live. And it's been great. The feedback has been amazing, and it's really been a way to stay connected to school and home. Next slide. I have tried to keep the connection with the students going with some crazy videos. So for every birthday of our students since we have been out, I have made a quick 15 to 30-second video that I have posted on Instagram, Twitter, to really keep the spirits up, to keep our students excited, looking forward to something, and it's really helped bring our community together. I've dressed up in band outfits, I've done yoga, you name it. I have tried to make a connection to the students individually, and it's really brought our community together where people are looking forward to the posts, waiting for them, and I don't do this alone. My entire staff contributes to giving me information about each student so that I can make them personable. So that's entire school community working together to keep our students engaged and not forgotten that we're there for them. Next slide. We have our clubs and activities, sending out photos of the day on social media just to keep everything as normal as possible. So our clubs are still meeting and making connections, and our staff is involved with this as well. Next slide. And then our sports teams. You know, the sports teams are a huge part of our social media presence. And by them recognizing our student athletes, bringing attention to them with the baseball team doing their lineups, track team spotlighting athletes, our golf team calling out their student athletes when they're committing to school. The students look forward to it, the parents love it, and it's really been a positive impact for our school community as a whole. Next slide. Thank you everybody for listening here. I appreciate everybody's involvement, NJPSA, FEA, PSA. It's been a great night, and I'm sure we'll get in, if there's any questions, we'll be able to answer them at the end of the event. Turn it back over to you, Dave.
Thanks so much, Kevin. It's great to see all the wonderful things you're doing, and the time you're taking to make students feel special and to recognize them and to do something that's unique to particular students. It's so powerful. So of course, we packed so much information in here today. We recognize we have gone over our time. I do want to raise one question for Barry and Brad and Kevin. If you have a parent who feels perhaps intimidated, that they don't feel like they have the same handle on social media that their child does, any tips for how that parent gets started? They might feel like they just can't possibly understand their child's social media world.
I know at Waldwick High School, we have done parent events where we've offered some workshops on different apps. We've brought in student leaders to work with parents and help them to get a better understanding and a comfort level for that. So that's something that we've tried to incorporate over the years.
Barry?
We do all the same things that Kevin's talking about. In addition, especially on our level, we do so much on a one-to-one basis just to kind of let families know that it's okay to not know. It's more important that they share that information than just we make an assumption that they already know. So in every message that I put out each week through Blackboard, which is the email and phone blast that go out to families, I just let families know, if you have any questions about any of the things that are going on in school, no matter how big, how small it is, please reach out, because if you don't tell us, then we don't know.
Great. And Brad, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, David, we're always have our ear to our stakeholders, and over the last 6 weeks or so, we have been able to provide opportunities. I think actually tonight or tomorrow night, we're providing some opportunities for parents to engage with some of our administrators and child study team members, talk about the struggles they're having with this pandemic and being at home, things of that nature. So we're always, as Kevin and Barry said, always there to offer a helping hand and provide support, just like through this webinar today.
So with that, I want to thank all of our incredible presenters. What we have given you here at the end of this presentation are links with various resources. In our final 2 slides, you see some great resources that reinforce everything that we went through today. And I want to thank our wonderful partner in this presentation, New Jersey PTA. So any final remarks, Kathy, as we wrap up our presentation?
I just would like to say thank you for everyone for this evening, and we will be taping this webinar and the other 2 webinars that we had, and you can find the link on newjerseypta.com.
Wonderful. And Pat, any final remarks as we wrap up this presentation?
No, I just want to again thank everybody for participating and thank our presenters. Excellent job, a lot of knowledge shared, and we appreciate that, and we appreciate the PTA, and we'll get together again with the PTA and see if we can develop more webinars for our families at home. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Be safe and have a wonderful evening.